Hello everybody, my name is Lydia, and I kind of wanted to talk about the topic of not giving up a little bit. Just sort of this maybe pep talk, perhaps. If you don't know anything about my story, I was in toxic mold for 3 years. I did say 4 to 5 years in the past, but recently I really did the math on about when it would have started to when I got out, and it would have been actually 3 years. It felt like an eternity when I was in it. I do talk about it frequently on this channel, but it was like hell on earth. It was, and it was an all-encompassing experience. My body was completely shutting down. I felt like a zombie for those 3 years, and it happened like rapidly. The symptoms happened so quickly, and they just kept developing, and it got worse and worse. It was pretty traumatic, to say the least. And then not directly related, but kind of related, I was homeless for about 3 months last year. It would have been this time last year, actually, which is crazy. But yeah, so both of those situations were traumatic, but in very different ways. And the toxic mold, I'd say, especially felt like an impossible situation. I don't want to say it felt like it was an impossible situation. And anytime I would look into how to detox from toxic mold and is it possible to truly heal, there would be varying results, because toxic mold, if you do not know, it is this silent unaliver. I don't know if I can say the K-I-L-L-E-R word on here. And on TikTok we say unalive for that word. So it is a silent unaliver, and it is not very well known about. Even most doctors don't really know good methods of detoxing from it. And when you look in spaces online and communities online to try to seek help and how to heal, it is sometimes very depressing. At least it was in my experience. It was extremely depressing at times, because a lot of people would say that it's impossible to heal. A lot of people would tell horror stories about how they thought they were healed and then they weren't, and just all of this stuff, this noise, I guess. And when you are fighting for your life, hearing that is just, it's crippling. It's truly crippling. And so there was a lot of that. I am on the other side of it today and can say that I have healed, even though through those 3 years there were many moments where I was convinced that I was not going to heal and that was going to be my life. Now, in our society lately, I have been noticing just this overarching energy and feeling of hopelessness. And I can't say that I don't blame people for feeling that way, for having these sort of mindsets that dictate what they say, and perpetuating this ideology that we can't escape our own situation, our own circumstances. This is what I'm seeing a lot online lately. A lot of this conversation, and I don't want to just say lately, I think within the past several years, and I think the pandemic definitely was a big effect on this, but people talk a lot about privilege, and who is privileged and who is not privileged. And many of us are not privileged, and who is privileged, and feeling sorry for ourselves as well. A lot of us have been feeling sorry for ourselves about our financial situation and about the economic collapse that's going on, and just living in that sort of sorrow. And I think it's perpetuating like these I guess sort of woe is me attitudes. And I again, I can't say that I blame people for having this sort of mindset, but after having been in such a horrific situation, and getting out of it on the other side. I mean, because it took everything from me. Toxic mold took everything from me. I had nobody. It was me and my mom, which was, you know, some people might say that was a blessing and that was a good thing, but it's also hard to watch a family member crumble before you and you have no control over it. Meanwhile, you're also crumbling. And it's just, it was incredibly traumatic for both of us, and then incredibly traumatic to watch such a traumatic thing happen to a family member, and then watching, it wasn't even just the toxic mold that I went through, guys. It was also family members who were, I thought, trusted, who understood my situation, who could see me gain weight rapidly. And I mean, 100 pounds I gained within a few months. It was rapid. So it was like an all-encompassing experience that I was going through. My mental capacity was declining. My memory, which used to be highly sharp, just completely being wiped from me. You would think that these family members would see this and understand this and say, wow, they need help. These people need help. But instead, they took things from us. And instead, they used our decline towards their advantage. And the only times that they helped us really was in turn to help themselves. It was a complete debilitating experience, and then we were watching people feed off of us. These I don't know, these people who just wanted to take and take and take further from us when we were at our weakest. It was pretty wild. So we got to see that and felt as though we had no, or at least I felt like I had no control over a lot of that, and just completely watching our lives crumble before us. We had to sell everything, and I do mean everything. There was a point in time where almost every room in the house felt dangerous to be in due to the mold, apart from my room. And so my mom and I had sold pretty much everything except for our mattresses, and we were both sleeping in my room. And it just was this crazy thing, because we were living in this house that had so much hope and potential in it, or that when we moved in, we thought it had so much hope, so much potential, and it was a bigger house, and we thought, wow, this is awesome. And then we ended up, our living quarters ended up being smaller than we had ever lived in before, and our means became almost nothing. And every single day, and I do mean every single day of my 3 years in that time, was spent thinking day and night. My dreams were thinking about it. My waking body, everything was thinking about how to get out of this situation. It's just to paint a little picture here for you guys. This was an impossible situation, and I would research things anytime I got even an inkling, a little spark on how to research little things to get out. I would ask groups and forums on how to escape, and people, you know, some they tried to help, but it's crazy because there are so many people going through this right now. So many people in toxic mold going through this exact thing right now, where they can't get out. It's insane. It is insane. And so it was an impossible situation, and there was no hope in it, and my body was deteriorating, and I didn't know how far. It's kind of crazy when you start watching your body deteriorate, because you don't know how far it can get. You think, surely this is it, and you can't really get much worse than this, and then something worse happens to your body, and you just start to feel so helpless, not knowing where in your body to really help. And even when you're detoxing, I mean, we were still in it, so we were detoxing, and then it wasn't helping. All it was doing was keeping us the same, so we weren't getting worse. And so I reached this plateau part. It was really this all-encompassing experience, you guys. And so I say this just to say, like, I have experience in an impossible situation. I have an experience in living in a very scary time. I mean, and on top of that, this family member had caused added like fear trauma on top of it, and did some really heinous things during this time that were unnecessary and spiked our adrenaline to the nines. I mean, there was moments where I didn't sleep at all at night. I was at fear for my own safety. So it was this house of chaos at this point. And we were also under this person's thumb in a way. It was really rough. And so when people start to say these things like there's no way out of this, and there are some people who are privileged and some people who aren't in life, and we just have to take that, it is so hard for me to listen to that. It is so hard for me to listen to people say that, even though I do recognize that we are in a financial and economic crisis. And I was homeless for 3 months. Thank God it was only 3 months, because many, many people are homeless for a lot longer. I was very blessed and fortunate in that way. But, you know, I've also been on the receiving end of that, and I do realize how bad the crisis is. I realize that. I mean, it was my full-time job trying to get housing, and I was treated very poorly in that as well. And people were not very helpful. They were making it actually more difficult for me when I was trying to find housing. And so I realize why people might say that their financial situation is terrible and that it'll never get better. But when we start to speak these things to ourselves, we make it true. We make it true. And we can't allow ourselves to be that way. And I see TikToks kind of reminding me of just the sort of mental state that our society's in right now. And I've been seeing, you know, there was this TikTok that came up on my For You page of this lady who I think she might talk about like financial like wealth and how to build your wealth on her page. I'm not sure. I didn't investigate her channel too much, but she said something like, can we stop, continuing this idea that $100,000 is a lot of money, because realistically it's not. And then somebody stitched her video being like, actually it is a lot of money, and you're privileged to think that it's not. And it's like, look, I think whatever these two ladies are saying aside, I think ultimately, maybe our energy should be that, yeah, $100,000 isn't, in the grand scheme of life, in the grand scheme of the billionaires, in the grand scheme of the world, $100,000 is not that much. It's not. Yes, it might seem like a lot to a lot of us, but if we start speaking that that's a lot of money to a lot of us, then it's going to remain a lot of money to a lot of us. I think expanding our minds and keeping that spirit about us that is hopeful is key to our future. Even though our futures might seem hopeless sometimes, that we might have nothing or even less than nothing and be in debt, like a lot of people are. But if we remain in that mindset that $100,000 is a lot of money and you're privileged to think otherwise, then yeah, that's going to be that for you. That's going to be the case for you. Because the realistic part of this, the truth of this, is really that there is an endless amount of money in this world, and that it's really just the area that you're in right now, and the situation that you're in right now that is keeping you there. Because in reality, the world has copious amounts. And some people strike it big in a day, in a second. Things can change, doors can open. It was hard for me to believe that I would ever heal, truly. How sick I was, I felt like I was on my deathbed every day. For 3 years. For three, very crucial years of my fundamental existence. And it wasn't looking like I was gonna get my health back anytime soon. And by a miracle, it did. And miracles happen all the time. And that miracle isn't privilege. It's me keeping my mind constantly open and never giving up. If I would have given up truly in those moments and not have brought myself back up, I would still be sick with toxic mold. I would be. Because those illnesses, for some people, they are a forever thing. Especially the people who have given up and who allow it to take over. Some people might say that me voicing this right now is showing my privilege, is my voice of privilege, but really it's just my unwillingness to give up. Now this is a really hot take and people are gonna really be furious at me about this, but sometimes I see this in homeschooling communities. If you ever mention homeschool, ever, there's going to be somebody out there that says, you're privileged if you can homeschool. It is a privilege to homeschool. And I see where they're coming from. I can see their lens. I can see it. But if you believe that sending your kid to public school or regular school, if you believe that that is as bad as I believe it is, as a lot of these homeschool parents believe it is, sending your kid to school with a bullet protective shield, if you believe that that is fundamentally as bad, if you believe that the things that they're teaching like Common Core are fundamentally as bad, if you believe that something is intrinsically just terrible, like I do, I and you might disagree with me on this, you might not be on the homeschool train, you might think that that's awful, but that's my belief. I do believe that public school especially is a prison for children. That's just been my belief, and you might just click off right there and just block me or whatever. But I hope you see through this that my point is not this. This is my belief, but this isn't, the point is not this. The point here is not homeschool. I'm just saying if you believe in something in your core, you will sacrifice for it. You will make it happen eventually. If you keep trying and trying and trying and trying for it and creating different avenues, opening up your mind to making it possible, it will be an impossibility for that not to happen. If your mind is constantly thinking about that thing and thinking about ways to make that thing happen, it will be an impossibility for it not to happen. Impossible. And so I don't really fully agree with that it's a privilege, even for single parents. There are still avenues and still ways currently. I'm not saying that it has access to you right now. It might be impossible for you right now, this second, to homeschool your kid or to make $100,000 or to get out of toxic mold, as awful as that is to say. But hang in there. Hang in there just a little while longer. And tell yourself that it is possible, because there are so many people in this world who are doing that exactly right now. That thing that you want in your head, there are so many people doing that exactly right now. There are so many people out there who have healed from toxic mold. I am one of them. Who have escaped an impossible situation. I am one of them. There are so many single parents who homeschool, who make it work, who do not have that privilege, who do not have something handed to them or help by any means, but because they believe that that is the right thing to do, and they believe that it is important, it is made possible. Now, I'm not saying that you have to agree with anything that I'm saying here, but I'm also not saying that you should, necessarily agree with what I'm about to say here, but it's warm out today. You can agree with that. But what I was going to say was, just a second. Oh, I'm not saying that everyone should believe that public school is a prison like I do for children. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is the fact that I have that belief, and the fact that a lot of other parents do have a similar belief system. Not that every homeschool parent believes the public school is prison. Most of them do not. But the fact that they do have this belief that fundamentally there's something wrong in that, or fundamentally that they would rather sacrifice all of these different things in order to homeschool rather than send their kid there, the fact that they hold that so true to themselves makes it possible. Like, I find it fundamentally wrong to send your kid to school with a bulletproof backpack. I do. And I think because I have that belief, and a lot of other parents do, they make it possible. And just like with my experience with toxic mold, I fundamentally, there were moments where I gave up in that, where I was completely like, I guess this is my life now. But after a while of sitting in that and living in that, that was a prison in itself. That was a mental prison. That was like giving up on life. That was a death sentence. To just give up and say that this is my life now. I guess I have toxic mold forever. And so, if you're in an impossible situation, just tell yourself that you will get out, and you will. Tell yourself that you will, even if you don't believe it. And if you are unsatisfied with how much money you're making, or whatever situation you're in, if you're homeless, tell yourself, I will not be homeless forever. Just start there. And there is more for me. There is a bigger future for me. I will be making more money. I will have a home. These things are possible for you. Because they're possible for a lot of people, and a lot of people are being given them left and right now, as we speak. I think we forget that, you know, especially since, I mean, we're being told, the news is telling us, and the TikToks are telling us, and everywhere we look, there's something telling us about how bad the market is and how hopeless things are looking, and the economic crash, and just how it's even so hard for some people to find rentals, let alone a house one day. But then there's a lot of people out there buying houses. It's crazy. There's a lot of people not just buying houses, but renovating their house, buying a second house. It's crazy. And there's a lot of different avenues, a lot of different ways to get there. It doesn't have to be the same way that they got there. I just thought I would try to give you this hope today, even if a part of it was controversial. I mean, I know a lot of people don't believe in homeschooling. So, but I hope in it that you can see that I'm not really talking about homeschooling. That's just my belief. And I believe that for anything that you believe. You might have a different type of belief that I do not believe in at all. But because you believe that, it will happen for you. I just don't think that we should be looking in terms of privilege anymore. Because at this point, who is privileged? I'm sure there are a lot of people who are privileged, but there are a lot of us that aren't. A lot of us that aren't. And even if somebody's privileged in one way, they're probably very unprivileged in another way. Anyway. Best of luck to all of you and your goals and your endeavors. You can do it. The fact that I'm alive and well today is a miracle, and the fact that you're alive and well today is a miracle as well. Anyway, God bless.